Hello everyone, and welcome back to Vellora. Get comfortable, relax, and prepare yourself for another unforgettable story filled with mystery, suspense, and unexpected twists. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Now, turn down the lights, put on your headphones if you have them, and let's dive into today's story.
My name is Ethan. I am 26 years old, and I have been driving a taxi in New York for almost 4 years. Most people think this job is boring. They imagine I spend all night driving strangers from one place to another. Sometimes that is true. Sometimes I meet happy people coming back from parties. Sometimes I drive tired workers who fall asleep before they even tell me where they live. Sometimes couples argue in the back seat while pretending I cannot hear them. After thousands of passengers, I believed I had seen everything. I was wrong. The night that changed my life started like every other Friday. The city was alive. Bright lights covered the streets. People hurried across sidewalks carrying shopping bags and umbrellas. Car horns echoed between tall buildings. I looked at the clock on my dashboard. 11:45 p.m. Just a few more hours, I said to myself. My shift will be over soon. I stopped at a gas station to buy a coffee. The old cashier smiled at me. "You look tired tonight." "I am." "Then don't drive near Maple Street after midnight." I laughed. "Why not?" He looked at me for a second before answering. "People say strange things happen there." I smiled. "I don't believe ghost stories." He didn't smile back. Neither did my brother. I waited for him to continue. Instead, he simply wished me a good night. His serious face stayed in my mind as I returned to my taxi. The rain started a few minutes later. Not heavy rain. Just enough to cover the windshield with tiny drops. The windshield wipers moved slowly from left to right. The radio played soft jazz music. Everything felt peaceful. Almost too peaceful. At exactly 11:58 p.m., I turned onto Maple Street. I immediately noticed something strange. The road was completely empty. No cars. No people. No dogs. Nothing. It was strange because Maple Street was usually busy, even late at night. I slowed down. The streetlights flickered one after another. For a second, everything became dark. Then the lights came back. That was when I saw him. A man stood under the last street lamp. He wore a long black coat. His hands were inside his pockets. His head was slightly lowered. He didn't wave. He didn't try to stop me. He simply stood there, looking directly at my taxi. Something inside me whispered, "Keep driving." I almost listened. But passengers meant money. I pulled over. The man walked toward the taxi with slow, calm steps. He opened the back door and sat down. The moment the door closed, the temperature inside the car dropped. I could actually see my breath. I turned down the air conditioner. It was already off. I looked into the rearview mirror. The man looked around 50 years old. His skin was pale. His eyes were dark. His hair was gray. There was something strange about his face. Not scary. Just empty. Like someone who had forgotten how to smile. "Good evening," I said. No answer. "Where are you going?" A few seconds passed before he spoke. His voice was quiet. Almost like a whisper. "Take me to 214 Willow Road." I searched the address on my GPS. Nothing appeared. I tried again. Still nothing. "I'm sorry," I said. "This address doesn't exist." The man looked out of the window. "It did." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You'll find it." I laughed nervously. "Sir, without an address, I can't help you." He slowly raised one finger. "Turn left at the next corner." I don't know why, but I did. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to finish the ride quickly. Maybe something else was guiding me. For the next 15 minutes, he never gave me a complete address. Only directions. Turn right. Go straight. Take the second left. His voice never changed. It stayed calm. Cold. Almost emotionless. The city looked different. The buildings became older. The roads became narrower. Streetlights disappeared one by one. Soon I realized something strange. I had never been in this neighborhood before. And yet, it felt familiar, like I had dreamed about it. Finally, the man said, "Stop here." I pressed the brakes. In front of us stood an old Victorian house. Its windows were broken. The front gate hung open. Weeds covered the yard. The place looked abandoned for years. "There is nobody living here," I said. "There used to be." I turned around. "That will be $23. He reached into his pocket and placed something in my hand. It wasn't money. It was an old silver coin. I looked at it. One side showed an eagle. The other showed a year. "I'm sorry," I said. "I can't accept this." He answered quietly, "You'll understand tomorrow." I looked down at the coin for less than 2 seconds. When I looked back, the back seat was empty. My heart almost stopped. The door was still closed. No sound. No footsteps. Nothing. I jumped out of the taxi. Rain poured onto my face. I looked left. Nobody. I looked right. Nobody. The road was completely empty. It was impossible. There was nowhere to hide. I called out, "Sir." No answer. The only sound was the rain hitting the old house. I walked toward the front door. It was locked. Dust covered every window. No footprints. No fresh tire marks. It looked as if nobody had visited that house in years. A cold wind blew behind me. I quickly returned to my taxi. My hands were shaking. "This makes no sense," I whispered. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I imagined everything. I started the engine. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated. A breaking news notification appeared on the screen. Breaking news. Today marks the 10th anniversary of the mysterious death of Michael Carter, whose body was discovered outside an abandoned house on Willow Road in 2016. Police never solved the case. My eyes froze. There was a picture under the headline. It was him. The same gray hair. The same black coat. The same empty eyes. The same man who had just been sitting in the back of my taxi. I looked up at the abandoned house. Then back at the phone. Then at the old silver coin still resting in my hand. Suddenly, the coin felt warm. Very warm. And on the passenger seat beside me, a folded piece of paper appeared. I was certain it had not been there before. My hands trembled as I slowly opened it. Inside, only 5 words were written. "Don't let me die again." I stared at the note in my hand. "Don't let me die again." I read the sentence 3 times. It never changed. My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it inside my head. "This isn't funny," I whispered. I looked at the back seat. Empty. I looked outside. The abandoned house stood silently in the rain. Every window was dark. I wanted to throw the note away. I wanted to drive home and forget everything. But something stopped me. The silver coin was still warm in my hand. It almost felt alive. I took a deep breath. "No," I said to myself. "I'm going inside." I grabbed my flashlight from the glove compartment. As soon as I stepped out of the taxi, the wind became stronger. The old gate moved slowly by itself. I froze. There was nobody there. I pushed the gate open. The grass reached my knees. Every step made a strange sound. Crunch, crunch. The front door stood only a few feet away. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Very slowly, I pushed the door. It opened by itself. The smell of old wood and dust filled the air. My flashlight moved across the hallway. Broken furniture. Old family photos. Spider webs everywhere. The house looked abandoned for years. But then, I noticed something strange. A grandfather clock in the corner was still ticking. "That's impossible," I whispered. The electricity had been cut off years ago. How could the clock still work? I walked deeper into the house. Every room looked frozen in time. Old newspapers. Broken chairs. Empty picture frames. Everything was covered with dust. Except one chair. Someone had cleaned it recently. I slowly pointed my flashlight toward it. There was a cup of coffee. Steam was still rising from it. Someone had made it only minutes ago. "Hello," I shouted. No answer. I turned around quickly. For 1 second, I thought I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway. A tall shadow. Watching me. I pointed my flashlight. Nothing. The hallway was empty. You are imagining things, Ethan. I kept walking. At the end of the hallway, I found a staircase leading upstairs. Every step creaked under my feet. Halfway up, I heard footsteps above me. Slow, heavy. 1, 2, 3. Someone was walking. I stopped breathing. So I'm not alone. The footsteps stopped too. Silence. A door upstairs slammed shut. Bang. I ran toward the sound. When I reached the second floor, I found 5 doors. All of them were open. Except one. The last door. It was closed. Very slowly, I reached for the handle. It was ice cold. I counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. I opened it. The room was completely empty. No furniture. No windows. Only one wooden table stood in the center. On the table, there was an old black notebook. My name was written on the cover. Ethan Walker. I stepped back. How is this possible? I had never been inside this house before. I slowly opened the notebook. The first page was blank. The second page was blank too. The third page. My blood turned cold. It was today's date. Under it someone had written, 11:58 p.m. Passenger enters taxi. 12:21 a.m. Ethan enters the house. Everything was exactly right. I turned the page. More writing appeared. But this part wasn't about the past. It was about the future. 12:37 a.m. A young woman wearing a red jacket will knock on the front door. I looked at my watch. 12:36 a.m. No. 1 minute later. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was downstairs. I ran toward the staircase. When I opened the front door, a young woman stood outside in the rain. She wore a bright red jacket. She looked frightened. "Oh, thank God," she said. "My car broke down. Can I use your phone?" I couldn't speak. Everything in the notebook was true. The woman looked confused. "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yes." She walked inside. Before I could say another word, the lights in the hallway suddenly turned on. Every single one. By themselves. The woman looked surprised. "I thought nobody lived here." "I thought so too." She laughed nervously. Then she noticed the notebook in my hands. "Where did you find that?" "You know this notebook?" Her face turned white. "My father used to have one exactly like it." "What was his name?" She answered without hesitation. "Michael Carter." The air left my lungs. Michael Carter. The dead passenger. The woman smiled sadly. "He disappeared 10 years ago." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because I had just driven her dead father to this very house less than an hour ago. Suddenly, the notebook flipped open by itself. A new sentence slowly appeared on the last page. Neither of us touched it. The ink wrote itself. "She is next." The woman looked at me. "What does that mean?" Before I could answer, a loud crash came from outside. We both turned toward the window. My taxi was completely empty. Its headlights switched on by themselves. And someone was sitting in the driver's seat, watching us. I couldn't breathe. The headlights of my taxi lit up the front yard. The engine started by itself. Neither I nor the young woman had the keys. Yet, the taxi was running. The windshield wipers moved slowly across the glass. Back and forth. Back and forth. The person sitting behind the steering wheel never moved. I couldn't see the face. Only a dark silhouette. The woman grabbed my arm. "Who is that?" I don't know." "Is someone trying to scare us?" I wish that was the answer. For nearly 30 seconds, we stood frozen near the window. Neither of us spoke. The figure suddenly raised one hand. It wasn't waving. It was pointing at me. A cold shiver ran through my body. The woman whispered, "Don't go outside." I looked at the notebook. Maybe it had another message. I quickly opened it. A new sentence slowly appeared. The black ink spread across the page as if an invisible hand was writing. "If the driver leaves, she dies." "What?" I whispered. The woman looked at me. "What does it say?" I hesitated. I don't think you want to know." She grabbed the notebook from my hands. Her eyes grew wide. Who wrote this? I don't know. You expect me to believe this? Before I could answer, the taxi horn blasted. Beep. We both jumped. The horn sounded again. Beep. The figure inside the taxi was gone. The driver's seat was empty. I looked around the yard. Nobody. The woman slowly stepped away from the window. I'm leaving. No. I don't even know you. I know, but please. My phone has no signal. This house is creepy, and now you're talking about magical notebooks. She walked toward the front door. I blocked her path. Listen to me. My father disappeared 10 years ago. She looked into my eyes. I know. I just found out that the man I picked up tonight was your father. She laughed. Not because it was funny, because she thought I had lost my mind. My father is dead. I know. I saw his picture. Then how could he be in your taxi? I don't know. Silence filled the room. She stared at me for several seconds. Finally, she sighed. My name is Olivia. I'm Ethan. She nodded. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Maple Street, the strange passenger, the silver coin, the abandoned house, the notebook, every single detail. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took a deep breath. My father used to tell me something when I was a little girl. What? He said that time doesn't always move forward. I frowned. What does that mean? I never understood. She looked around the house. But maybe. He wasn't talking about time. A loud thud came from upstairs. Boom. We looked at each other. Did you hear that? She nodded. It came from the second floor. I grabbed my flashlight again. We should check. She looked terrified. Together. We slowly climbed the stairs. Every step creaked beneath us. The hallway was darker than before. The lights downstairs were still on. But up here, nothing. Only darkness. The sound came again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It sounded like someone dragging something across the floor. The noise came from the last room. The same room where I had found the notebook. I slowly opened the door. The room was empty. Except, the notebook was no longer on the table. What? I looked everywhere. It had disappeared. Olivia suddenly pointed toward the wall. Ethan. What? Look. Words were appearing directly on the wallpaper. Dark black letters. One by one. The basement. Then another sentence. He is waiting. The letters disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. Neither of us spoke. There wasn't a basement when I came in, I whispered. There has to be. We searched the first floor. Kitchen. Dining room. Living room. Nothing. Then Olivia noticed something strange. One of the bookshelves looked newer than the others. She pulled one old book. A hidden door slowly opened behind the shelf. Cold air rushed out. A narrow staircase disappeared into complete darkness. Neither of us wanted to go down. But we both knew. Whatever answers we were looking for, they were waiting below. I turned on my flashlight. The beam barely reached the bottom. Step by step, we descended. The smell changed immediately. The air became damp. Almost impossible to breathe. When we reached the bottom, we found a single room. In the center stood an old wooden desk. On the desk, there was a tape recorder. A red light blinked. It was already playing. A man's voice filled the room. If you're listening to this, then I failed. Olivia gasped. Tears filled her eyes. I know that voice. I looked at her. Who is it? She could barely speak. It's my father. The recording continued. My name is Michael Carter. If Ethan Walker is standing in this room, then time has started repeating itself again. I felt the blood leave my face. The recording knew my name. It knew I would come here. Michael continued. Ethan, you have only 3 nights to stop what is coming. If you fail, you won't be the only one who dies. The tape suddenly stopped. Silence. A second tape inside the recorder clicked on by itself. A different voice began speaking. This voice was deeper, colder, almost amused. You should have stayed in your taxi, Ethan. The flashlight in my hand went out. Everything became pitch black. And somewhere in the darkness, someone laughed. The laughter echoed through the basement. It wasn't loud. It wasn't human either. It sounded as if someone was standing right behind me, breathing. I couldn't see anything. My flashlight was dead. Olivia grabbed my arm so tightly that it hurt. Ethan. I know. Tell me you heard that. I did. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The tape recorder clicked again. A small green light appeared. It was the only light in the entire basement. Michael's voice returned. If you're hearing another voice, don't answer it. No matter what it says, don't answer. The recording suddenly ended. Silence. Then the cold voice spoke again. Ethan. It said my name slowly, as if it had known me for years. Ethan. Turn around. I closed my eyes. No. It isn't behind you. It is beside you. Olivia whispered. Don't listen. The voice laughed softly. Good. She remembers. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Olivia looked at me in shock. You answered it. Michael had warned me. Don't answer. And I had already failed. The room became freezing cold. A loud crack echoed above us. Dust fell from the ceiling. The green light on the recorder started flashing. Flash. 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 Then everything stopped. The silence felt even worse. I finally managed to turn my flashlight back on. The beam illuminated the room. The tape recorder was gone. The desk was empty. What? Olivia stepped backward. It was right here. I know. Neither of us understood. Then I noticed something on the floor. A photograph. I picked it up. It showed a man standing beside my taxi. But the picture wasn't taken tonight. The taxi looked old. The license plate was different. The man in the photo was me. Only I looked older. Much older. Gray hair. A beard. Scars across my face. And written on the back of the photograph were 6 words. Don't trust yourself tomorrow. I stared at the sentence. What does that even mean? Olivia took the photo. This picture is impossible. I've never looked like that. She turned it over again. The paper is old. At least 10 years old. I felt dizzy. How could someone have taken a picture of me 10 years before it happened? Suddenly, a loud ringing sound echoed through the basement. My phone. I quickly answered. Hello. No one spoke. Only breathing. Slow, heavy breathing. A familiar voice. It was mine. Ethan. I froze. Olivia looked at me. Who's calling? I couldn't answer. The voice continued. You don't have much time. I whispered. Who are you? You already know. No. You are me. Every hair on my body stood up. This isn't funny. I know exactly what you're thinking. You think someone is playing a trick. They're not. I couldn't breathe. The voice said, look inside your jacket. Slowly, I reached into my pocket. There was an envelope. I had never seen it before. Inside, a newspaper clipping. The date was tomorrow. The headline read, Taxi driver killed in explosion. Below the headline, my picture. The same clothes. The same taxi. I looked at Olivia. She noticed my face turning pale. What happened? I handed her the newspaper. Her hands started shaking. This is tomorrow's date. I know. The voice on the phone spoke again. You have exactly 24 hours. If you drive the taxi tomorrow night, you die. How do I stop it? There was a long silence. Then the voice answered. You don't. The call ended. My phone screen went black. At the exact same moment, the silver coin inside my pocket became hot. So hot that I dropped it on the floor. The coin began spinning by itself. Round and round. Faster. Faster. Until it suddenly stopped. Both Olivia and I stared at it. There was something carved into the floor beneath the coin. We hadn't noticed it before. A message. Hidden under years of dust. The first ride was never the beginning. What does that mean? Olivia whispered. Before I could answer, The basement door slammed shut upstairs. Bang! Footsteps echoed above us. Slow, heavy. Exactly the same footsteps I had heard on the first night. Someone had entered the house. And this time, we both heard a man's voice calling from upstairs. "Ethan, I'm waiting." I recognized that voice immediately. It was the passenger from my taxi. But this time, he didn't sound dead. He sounded angry. I looked at the man standing under the street lamp. The rain was falling exactly as it had the night everything began. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. My dashboard clock read 11:58 p.m. No, it can't be. The man slowly lifted his head. For the first time, I saw his face clearly. It was me. Not someone who looked like me. Not my brother. Not my twin. Only older. His face was covered with scars. His eyes looked tired. He walked toward my taxi. Every step felt heavier than the last. He opened the back door and sat down. Neither of us spoke. I stared at him through the rearview mirror. Finally he smiled. "I've been waiting for you." My voice trembled. "Who are you?" "I'm who you'll become, if you make the wrong choice." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You called me?" "Yes." "You left the silver coin?" "Yes." "You sent me to Michael?" "Yes." "Why?" He looked out at the rain before answering. "Because I failed." The taxi became silent. "I don't understand." "I tried to save Michael." "So did I. And every time I saved him, someone else died." I felt my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "The timeline always demands a life. If Michael lives, you die. If you live, Michael dies. There has to be another way." He slowly shook his head. "I searched for one. For 10 years. I never found it." I slammed my hands against the steering wheel. "No. I'm not accepting that. There is always another choice." For the first time, the older version of me smiled. "I hoped you would say that." He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the old silver coin. Then he placed it beside mine. The two coins touched. A bright white light filled the taxi. Everything disappeared. When the light faded, I was standing in the middle of Maple Street. No cars. No rain. No buildings. Only darkness. The older Ethan stood in front of me. "This place exists outside time. If you make the right decision here, the loop ends forever. What do I have to do?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then he handed me the notebook. "This notebook chooses one person every 10 years. It feeds on fear. It traps people inside the same story. It needs someone to keep the loop alive." I stared at the notebook. "So none of this was a ghost?" "No. It was the notebook. It created every illusion. The passenger. The house. The voices. The phone calls. Everything." My hands shook. "So how do I stop it?" "You destroy the notebook." I opened it. Every page was now filled with names. Hundreds of names. Taxi drivers. Every one of them had disappeared. Every one of them had entered the loop. The last name on the final page was mine. Ethan Walker. Below it, one empty line waited, as if the notebook wanted another victim. I looked at the older Ethan. "What happens if I destroy it?" He smiled sadly. "I disappear. And you? I get my life back. You'll never remember me." I looked into his eyes. For the first time, I realized something. He wasn't my enemy. He had spent 10 years trying to save me. Tears filled my eyes. "I'm sorry." He smiled. "You already saved me." I took a deep breath. Then I tore the first page. Nothing happened. I tore another. The ground began to shake. I ripped the notebook into pieces. A deafening scream echoed through the darkness. The pages burst into black ash. The silver coins melted into dust. The darkness cracked apart like broken glass. The older Ethan slowly faded away. Before disappearing, he smiled one last time. "Live the life I couldn't." Everything turned white. I opened my eyes. Morning sunlight shone through my taxi window. People walked along the sidewalks. Cars filled the streets. Everything looked normal. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream. Then my phone rang. It was Olivia. I answered. Hello. She laughed. Ethan. I have amazing news. What happened? The police finally solved my father's disappearance. My heart stopped. What? They found new evidence this morning. My father wasn't murdered. He survived. They found him alive in another state. He had lost his memory for years. They're bringing him home today. I couldn't speak. A tear rolled down my cheek. Worked. What worked? Olivia asked. I smiled. Nothing. Just. I'm happy for you. After the call ended, I looked at the passenger seat. The notebook was gone. The silver coin was gone. Everything was gone. Only one small piece of paper remained. I picked it up. Every road offers two choices. Thank you for choosing the right one. I folded the note and smiled. That night, I drove my taxi again. The clock reached 11:58 p.m. I passed Maple Street. A man stood under the old street lamp. He raised his hand, asking for a ride. For 1 second, I felt fear. Then I smiled. I stopped the taxi. He opened the door. He was just an ordinary passenger. Good evening, he said. Can you take me to the airport? I laughed softly. Of course. As I drove away, the rain finally stopped. For the first time in 10 years, Maple Street was just another street, and my life finally belonged to me.